I'm Dr. Kimberly Manning.
And this is Dr. Ashley McMullen. And you're listening to the Human Doctor Podcast, where we explore the human side of medicine, along with teaching, living, learning, and all things in between. Using the power of storytelling, conversation, and connectedness.
Hey, we're two dope academic internal medicine doctors, but we ain't your doctors. So if you perceive anything we say here as medical advice, no, it ain't that. Also, the things we say, they only reflect our brilliant Black woman magic mind and not our employers.
You could have been anywhere, y'all, but you chose to be here with us, and we appreciate you. Let's go.
Ashley.
Yes, ma'am.
How are you today? On a scale of 1 to 5 with an adjective to describe how you're feeling.
Ooh, you got to throw the adjective in there. Okay. I am I'm a fatigued 4.8.
Okay. Got you.
Yeah. I was mentioning before that, sleep has been overall really great compared to where it was before, but I still have a couple nights here and there that aren't so good. Last night was a little rough. And I do think in part because I've got, an added 1.5 pounds of extra hair attached to my head. So,
well, for our listeners who may be confused by that statement, Mahalia, also known as Ashley's hair, changed it up this week. She has box braids meaning somebody parted her hair into a whole bunch of little boxes and put a braid in each box. And they're lovely. They're like long and luscious. But y'all, she added a little bit of, light brown hair into it. So it's got like an ombre situation going on. Yeah, it's giving, I don't know, it's giving like Janet Jackson circa me in college.
I love it. No, thank you for that lovely description. This is actually like the longest hair that I've had. Like I've gotten braids before. It's been a while, but I think that, I was a little braver this time and went with kind of like the mid back length. So
okay.
It is luscious and long, but it takes a little getting used to.
You're looking good. I am a excited 4.9.
Okay.
I'm also like a pretty like accomplished 4.9.
Ooh, okay.
Not as accomplished as you would think. Like I still have approximately 5 million medical student letters to still write.
Maybe
Let's be clear.
5 million.
Yeah, 5 million. 5 million. It was 6 million last week, so it's coming on down. But you think that what I'm about to do is talk about the Women in Medicine Summit.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm expecting you to do.
That's what you're expecting me to tell you.
Miss Keynote Speaker.
Yeah, well, I was one of the keynote speakers, the closing keynote, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time at the Women in Medicine Summit. Shout out to Dr. Shika Jain,
yes,
who has been doing this for more than 5 years now. It's an amazing conference in Chicago at the beautiful Drake Hotel. Love it. But that is actually not what I'm about to tell you. Do you know what I did today that is something that I'm so proud of? I went up to my son's high school and I went to the varsity cheer practice and worked with the cheerleaders.
Oh my God.
I did because, as you know, the way I choose what things I work on and engage my time in, it's almost always things I'm critical of. And a couple years ago, I was at my son's football game, and the cheerleading squad, their cheers absolutely had nothing to do with what was happening in the game. And it was driving me crazy. Like we'd be on offense and they would be like introducing themselves. We'd be about to make a touchdown. They would be doing a defense cheer. Like they didn't have any idea what was going on. And that year I just mostly like looked and kind of talked. Well, I talked some talk. Let's say.
Yep. Gotcha.
Last year I kind of talked to the coach and I was like, you guys need to, really get the girls to understand what's happening in the game so that their cheers can align with that. And they're like, yeah, we know. So this year, at the start of the year, I went down there and I said, who are the captains? I found the captains. I talked to the captains and I said, listen, ladies, this is what you need to do. I explained to them things about like basic things about football. I gave them some places to look at stuff about football so they would know what was happening. And I was like, you need to know what a first down is. You need to know what a first and 10 is. You need to know what first and goal is. You need a kickoff cheer. You need to know when we're on offense. You need to know when we're on defense. Okay. So if you're saying hold them, you need to know what you're talking about. I said, and the whole team doesn't need to know, just like the captains need to know. And they took it to heart.
Mm.
So I've been encouraging them whenever I go to the game. I'm really there to see my child, but I've been encouraging them. And last week I saw them and they looked so good. They're like, Dr. Manning, you still said you were going to come by our practice. I said, you know what? I'm coming to your practice this week. And I came to their practice and we had a good time. I was talking to them all about like, kickoff cheers and what they can do and helping people have presence and smiling. And
This is so
it was
excellent.
really fun. But they were so encouraged and so happy. And, one of the girls said, I've been cheering since I was a freshman. She was a senior. And she was like, nobody ever has encouraged us like this or given us this kind of
Oh,
attention. And I was like,
oh,
well, I will keep doing that. But
so
really deep
good.
down, I'm just the take home point of me telling y'all this story is that number one, you are not as busy as you think. That's number one. People are busy doing what they want to do. But number two, if you really feel critical of something,
Hmm.
one of the best things you can do is just get involved. Roll your sleeves up and get involved. I am a whole grown full professor who was somebody's keynote speaker on Saturday. And here I am on a Monday afternoon in the parking lot of Druid Hills High School teaching somebody a first down chair.
I mean, yes to all of that. Like,
Uh,
particularly, not just sitting back and criticizing, but actually thinking about what you can do to improve things. I'm also very curious about how your high school senior son feels about his mom showing up to cheer practice in the parking lot.
Here's the fascinating piece of this. My son thinks it is so awesome.
Oh my God.
He is not embarrassed by it. I I had a picture from one of the games with the cheerleaders, and I was like, "Look, I was with the cheerleaders. They want me to come up to their practice." He said, "Are you gonna go?" I said, "I might." He said, that's a W mom, a winning mom, by the way. So today I told him, I was like, hey, I was at cheer practice from 4 to 6, working with the cheerleaders. He was like, that's a W mom. That's what's up. And he said, did you take any pictures? And I showed him. He was like, that's what's up. I like that. I love
Oh,
that. I'm like, you do?
yes.
You're not horrified? He said, no. That's real cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
My son Zachary, he thinks I'm cool though. So I really don't embarrass him that much, except for like my bullhorn at the games where I sometimes call like football plays before the referee can. But
Mhm, mhm.
I just be trying to help.
Yes, we do know of those parents in the stands, and we thank you for your service, even though
I
it may or may
mean,
not be accurate most of the time.
I know let's be very clear now. That was shade. And my calls be accurate. I'd be like offsides, false start, holding. I see because where I'm sitting, I can see the whole field.
Hmm.
you know.
I love
Anyway,
it. I'm gonna start calling you W Mom basically from here on out.
I mean, I'm a W mom for real though. I mean, I'm here for it.
Yes.
Now, what did you do this weekend?
So I actually had a really great experience. I want to actually give a shout out to a friend of mine and also a friend of the podcast, Debbie Barish, who's a nurse practitioner out here in the East Bay. She invited me to this event called Beyond the A Word, which is
Okay.
the A word being abortion, which are
Okay.
stories centered around reproductive health and the experiences of birthing people and their experiences around abortion care, which, wherever folks may fall on the spectrum of beliefs and ideas related to that topic, I will say just sitting still and listening to the lived experiences of people who've been in that position, whether it be
Hmm.
people who've experienced an abortion or folks who've worked in abortion clinics. I was really humbled to hear just these varying experiences and the context in which, care has been given. And, I walked away feeling very moved. And so I
Hmm.
had a really good time. I'm glad that I went to that.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
We have waited way too long to hear a story from the master clinician storyteller.
Ashley, is that mean it's you?
Oh, you're hilarious.
I tried. I tried.
I know that that got a little chuckle out of me, but we all know who I'm talking about.
Hmm.
Grady Doc herself, Dr. Kimberly Manning, keynote
Hmm.
speaker for the Women in Medicine Conference.
Hmm. Well, thank you for that lovely and lengthy preamble as I really literally try to think what is the what. I
Yeah.
really, really was trying to think of what is the what.
I mean, I can keep going if you need a little
I
more
know.
time.
I know.
Oh,
I think what I'm gonna make my what is hearsay.
hearsay. Okay. You really stepping it up because
I
that is definitely
know,
a
I
new one.
know, I know. It's funny. I was trying to think what direction did I want to go, but I know the direction. So I want to take you back probably about 5 or 6 years. I was on the hospital service. I was rounding one afternoon, and a lot of times I round in the morning and see patients, and then I kind of loop back, especially as family members are there, just to kind of hang out a little bit, spend time with family,
Mhm.
um, and just get to know people a little bit better if time is permitting. On this day, my team had admitted this gentleman who was fairly young. He was like about 51. He was out and about living his life. I believe he was at like a little league baseball game or something,
Mm,
and he suddenly felt extremely nauseous and lightheaded, and he was basically having a pretty massive inferior wall MI or a heart attack, whatever you
mhm.
want to call
Yeah.
it. He was like almost passed out, and someone called 911 and they were able to get him to the hospital. And he had like really high troponins, which are the enzymes that elevate in a time of a heart attack,
Mhm.
and a very abnormal EKG. And he went to the cardiac catheterization lab, and they were able, to put a stent in and pretty much revascularize him and save his life.
Mm,
I was taking care of him after all of that had happened. So I came into the room and he was in the bed. He looked okay. His brother was at the bedside with him, though. He was about 51 or so. His brother was like in his late 40s. And I come in and sit down and we start chatting, and the patient starts to recount again what happened. And he was like, I knew, I knew I could have died. I knew that. Like when the way I was feeling, I knew something was very, very, very wrong.
mm.
I was like, oh my God, something bad is happening. And I said, yeah, we call that impending doom, like where you feel like, you're going to die. He said, that is exactly what I felt like. He said, and somebody said to me in the crowd, they said, we think you might be having a panic attack. And
Mm,
he's like, I am not having no panic attack. This right here is something else. I've never had a panic attack. This is bad. Somebody do something. And his brother was there, so they called 911. And he kept talking about how like he could have died. He knew it was something. And, I guess he felt kind of validated when he found out that he indeed was having a fairly significant heart attack.
yeah.
So as we're all sitting there talking, his brother was like, yeah, remember that dude that used to work at the dairy and he collapsed in the dairy? And they were like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like, yeah, that man was only 48 years old, man. He had 4 kids. It's like, damn. He's like, yeah, he had a big heart attack. He's like, yeah. He said, then, remember our cousin? Is like, which one? They're like, the one, so and so. So they named the cousin. Cousin had a heart attack. He was in his car and he was just sitting out there warming his car up. And then his wife came out there and he had never left and he had had a heart attack right in the car. He's like, how old was he? How old was he again? He's like, man, that man wasn't even 60 years old yet, man. So they're going through like all of these people who were sort of not that old who'd had a heart attack.
Mhm.
And every single person they told a story about, it was something bad. They was like, oh yeah, remember dude from the Sopranos? Yeah, Tony Soprano. Yeah, yeah, that bro, he had a heart attack too. That man had a 12-year-old. That's messed up. How old was he? They're like, look up on your phone how old he was. So essentially, over and over and over again, they're just trading stories about how something really bad happened. Then they shifted the gears and started talking about people who'd had a heart attack, but then they were like left like in a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
Now you remember so and so, he had that heart attack, but then he lived, but he had to get that shocker put in his heart, and then his heart got real weak, and he can't even hardly walk and do nothing no more. He got heart failure. It's like, yeah, man, but at least he alive. So it was a very depressing conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm just listening to all of this. And again, this is about 5 or 6 years ago. And at this time, my father was still living. So I look at them and I said, you know what? My father had a massive heart attack when he was 54. And they both just got quiet and looked at me.
Mm.
Oh, man, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, man, 54. How many of y'all is it? I said, it's four of us. Oh, man. Oh, man, really? It's like, yup. I was like, yeah. And he happened to be able to get to the hospital just like you did. And they were able to, revascularize him, which is where they open up your blood vessel to allow you to get blood and oxygen back to your heart again. And then he went to cardiac rehab and he lived. He's like, oh, that's what's up. That's what's up. That's good stuff. And they quietly listen there. So the man who was the patient, though, he starts like getting really quiet and like staring at me and studying me. I said, you okay? He was like, your dad, is he with us? And I was like, yeah, he's with us. I said, that was in 1999. That happened a long time ago. He was like, that happened in 99? I said, yeah. He's like, wow. Uh, so like, is your dad like, is he like sickly? What's he like? So I pulled my phone up and I showed him a picture of my dad. And he had just got through walking at the track that morning and he had sent
Mm-hmm.
me a picture
With his fanny
right,
pack.
with his fanny pack, child, and his little towel around his neck.
Yeah.
I said, this is my father this morning. And that man looked like he was going to cry.
Wow.
I then pulled up my text exchange with my father. I said, this is my father right now, worrying me to death, asking me questions about stuff. He was like, this is your father who had a heart attack, a massive heart attack in 1999? I said, yeah, man. He said, wow, wow. He was just quiet. I said, you know what? Sometimes we need to tell the good news too.
Mm.
I said, because a lot of times the most awful thing that could happen becomes newsworthy. And so we pass those stories on over and over and over again. But do you know there are a lot of people who make it? They make it. Just like people drive places sometimes and they don't make it where they're going. But a lot of people do make it where they're going. It's just not a story to tell.
Yeah.
And I promise you, his eyes welled up with tears and a tear like ran down his face. He was
Mm.
like, I needed to hear that, Doc. I needed to hear that today. I needed to hear that. He's like, I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that. And he just dropped his head because he was so scared.
Mm.
He said, I got kids. I got kids. I got a grandbaby. He's like, I just needed to hear that. I needed to hear that. I said, my daddy is in his 70s and he is getting on my nerves to this day. And the last thing he worried about right now is what happened to him in 1999. I
Mm.
said, he takes care of doctors. He takes his medication. He is able to walk. He kept my kids every summer for 8 full summers. I was like, he's lived a really great life since then. And this is, before my father passed away.
Yeah.
But never in a million years did I think that that little testimony about my dad would mean so much to someone. And it was such levity in our conversation when I came in the room. It was so everyday.
Mhm.
But we do this all the time where we exchange horror stories with people. And it's not just in healthcare. It can also happen with medical students.
Yeah.
You're a medical student, you preparing to take USMLE step one. Oh, there was so and so, and she took the board 4 times, and then she had to flunk out of medical school. Oh, yeah. And then, so and so, this happened. And then, oh, yeah, so and so didn't even match. And then, so and so. And I'm like, you know what? We got to be really careful about what kind of news we keep passing on.
Hmm.
We just need to balance it.
Yes.
So I was really convicted by his response because I didn't see that coming when I told him about my dad. I was just telling him.
Yeah.
But the way he started weeping, I was like, man, you know what? We got to share the good news with people too.
You're right. It seems like, that the negativity somehow is what often sticks and what permeates.
Yeah.
And that can be hard, especially, in healthcare.
Yeah. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I don't want to be, so pie in the sky and super ultra optimistic that I can't, be a pragmatist. But the truth is that, yeah, there is really great technology around revascularizing people who are having heart attacks. We are in a different space than we were even, when I was in residency.
Hmm.
And somebody called 911 early and he got in time and somebody revascularized him. And I told him so. I said, now what you got to do is you got to do all the things that they tell you to do. Because what I will tell you is that my father did everything they told him to do. He was like,
Mm.
what they tell him to do? They told him to lose 35 pounds. And guess how many pounds he lost? He was like, how many? I said 35 pounds, bro.
No more, no less.
No, no more, no less. He went to cardiac rehab. He was walking every day. He had a little thing to show. He got to the 150 minutes of cardiovascular. He had the little thing to track his heart rate. He was dead serious. I was like, so, I mean, this is somebody who optimally did everything that was asked of him, but he was about your age and, you can do the same thing.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, I could totally do the same thing. I said, and you knew your body well enough to advocate for yourself. He was like, I knew something was wrong.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah.
I'm
So
just picturing his face.
yeah, when he started crying, because he didn't strike me as a dude who cries regularly.
Hmm.
But again, I think the overarching piece to all of this is to just be careful what we decide to share when. I mean, we really need to be thoughtful about that because sometimes telling somebody about a horror story with a bad outcome when they are already down on a knee,
Hmm.
that might be something that could impact the way that they see their own outcome. And what you say can definitely impact what you see.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that last week.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
so having somebody share a positive testimony of something, it can actually become a pivot point. Yeah.
I would like to think that that really catalyzed his trajectory towards preventing any further events. We love to share the miraculous, like the 1% who beat the odds. But when it comes to stuff like this, particularly, revascularization, like door to balloon time, getting people in those acute situations, the interventions they need really fast, that's the stuff that happens daily.
And primary care because
Yes. Thank you.
what my dad had was a great primary care doctor and he had a great preventive cardiologist and those folks took care of him until he passed away.
Yeah.
And I mean just to imagine that this man had like three vessel coronary artery disease. He was like in the process of queuing a whole wall out of muscle in his heart. He had a proximal LAD. This is like the biggest blood vessel that feeds your heart. The very front part of his blood vessel was over 95% blocked. That meant
Mm.
the whole half of your heart, the left side that pumps the hardest, would have been all of that would have been messed up if
Yep.
he had not gotten in when he did. But once he got the care he needed from the cardiologist and they made recommendations, he was in a position to follow the recommendations. And no, he wasn't perfect, but he had a really great therapeutic alliance with both his cardiologist and his primary care doctors. In 2019, I remember that I was sitting in Jamaica and it was December 31st. And I was like wow, you know what? My father on December 31st, 1999, was in the OR getting a coronary artery bypass graft.
Wow.
I was like 20 years before. And do you know my dad didn't have any heart failure. He wasn't struggling with that. I mean, he didn't have a lot of issues after that. He,
Yeah.
yeah. So all of those medications that they tell people that they need to take, the goal-directed medical therapy and things to kind of restructure your heart, it actually works if
Yeah.
you do what you're supposed to do.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, that was it, and that wasn't a miraculous testimony. It is the thing that leads to all the recommendations. It was like what can actually happen when people have access to care and can be in a position to do all the things. And that man, what he had in common with my dad was that he had people who loved him.
Hmm.
Because the way his brother was sitting at that bedside, it was very clear that people loved him. And man, if you got somebody on your side who loves you and who cares if you here or not, you got to leap ahead of a whole bunch of people.
Yes. 100%.
So I always think about that dude, and I like to believe that, he is somewhere with even more grandkids than he had before. And, everybody calling him Pop Pop and enjoying him and celebrating birthdays with him and all the things. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it.
And I said, make sure you tell your story too. And don't
Mm.
tell it like it was something bad. You tell
Yeah.
them that what you felt was nausea and you felt lightheaded. And that's what people feel when that part of their heart is impacted. And they opened your blood vessel up in time. And your heart is doing great.
Mm.
Shout out to the cardiologist.
Shout out to the cardiologist, the interventional cardiologist,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
and the PCPs who are hopefully still making sure everything is still
Mm-hmm.
copacetic.
And the brothers at the bedside, the family
Hmm.
members at the bedside, because
Yes.
the family at the bedside is the ultimate alley oop
Ooh, yes.
for patient care. Man, beware of hearsay. You might say something and somebody will internalize it and it'll impact what they do.
Hmm.
Mhm.
All
Well, I
right.
hope you and your box braids, have a great rest of the week. I gotta
Yeah.
go brush up on my, toe touches and herkies.
Yes, I was going to say, I hope you and the cheer squad put together something spectacular. It sounds like the season is already off to a good start. So,
Well, I have spared them my moves because they are still circa 1988. So I think I'm going to spare them that. But I do absolutely positively understand football, and I can definitely coach them on what to do when we are first in goal.
all right, Coach Manning is loading.
That's right, baby. That's right. You know what I mean? Well, sis, I sure love talking to you.
It is always a gift to spend an evening with you and hear your stories. I hope you have the best night and allow your son to get back on his PlayStation.
I will let my son get back on his PlayStation. And while people are getting on stuff, I hope you will get on a computer and make sure that you are registered to vote and that you have a plan to vote.
Hmm.
And regardless of how you intend to vote, our hope is that you're in a number if you are eligible.
All that needs to be said.
All right, sis.
All right.
Holla.
That wraps up this week's episode of the Human Doctor Podcast.
Special thanks to our favorite brother gastroenterologist, Dr. Chuma Obiname, for the beats. Shout out to the Dr. Ashley McMullen for editing and production.
Mad love to our podcast family at The Nocturnist and the Clinical Problem Solvers, our Med Twitter fam.
And especially shout out to all of you, our listeners.
Until next week, remember,
we see you and you are enough. Holla!